Welcome to NinjaCast, a photography podcast powered by Studio Ninja, the world's highest-rated business management app, built specifically for photographers. Listen and learn as the most successful photographers on the planet share their knowledge to help you transform every element of your photography business. Here's your host, Sally Shaw.
Hi guys, welcome to NinjaCast. Today I'm joined by the awesome Matt Parry. Now Matt is a wedding photographer who has so many accolades I've lost count. I'm really looking forward to speaking to him today. We're going to be covering everything from mixing documentary photography with epic portraits, right through to creating a consistent style and how to curate your photos. Let's get started. Hi Matt, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Sally.
Good, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you for coming and carving out the time and chatting with us. It's really nice to meet you as well. So for our listeners that might not be familiar with you, Matt, can you give us a little bit of a backstory, a history of your journey in the industry so far?
Yeah, it's been quite a long one. I'm one of the older set now, I guess. It's been probably 12 years since I shot my first wedding, so I've seen the industry change an awful lot. I kind of fell into it. A lot of photographers that I speak to have a similar story, really. Maybe a hobbyist photographer. I've always dabbled with some form of creative outlet, whether it be music or I studied art at school and college. And always had something as an outlet, but this was the kind of first hobby that I picked up that I managed to kind of monetize. So it was a hobby, just one of many creative hobbies that I had. So I didn't literally own a camera till I was probably in my early 30s. I got my first SLR of any quality, probably I was about 32, I think. And then picked it up as a hobby from there. And I'd worked in the corporate world my entire adult life in 2 or 3 different forms. The recession was quite hard in 2008. I got married, saw there was another side to wedding photography that I possibly didn't realize existed, and quit my existing job, didn't know what to do. And my wife suggested that I should try photography. And I thought, you can't just try photography. But within 6 months I was shooting weddings basically. And so I've learned very much on the job, the ability to pick the brains of other photographers at workshops and conferences and gatherings, and that didn't really exist then, to be honest with you. So it was very much kind of heads down, and just learn as I went, basically. I don't think I was ever blagging it, because I was very honest with that first sort of 6-12 months worth of weddings that I was very new, and my price reflected that. But I think that's that kind of, we kind of look down on those people now as an industry that sort of will kind of charge very little just to get the work, or even don't charge to do work. But I'm always cautious of that, because I was kind of in that position to start with. And if it wasn't for, I've never really worked for free, if that makes sense. I wasn't trying to find a specific type of wedding or a specific venue. Perfectly happy to just be getting paid to be a photographer. So maybe the type of weddings that I shot back then were maybe a little bit more traditional, a bit more kind of standardized to the ones that I shoot now. But it was I wouldn't change it, I don't think, because I've seen it all quite literally. I've never really handpicked the type of couples that I work with, been able to, through my style and my website, maybe attract the right ones. But I'm not, if somebody wants to work with me and likes my photographs, I don't care where they're getting married, who they are, where it is. If they like my work, then we usually get on, and it's a good match.
That's an awesome way to be, though, isn't it? Because I think it's so common now that you see that, there's photographers that only shoot, say 15 weddings a year, 20 weddings a year, and they're specifically, selecting the weddings that they want to shoot. And it's refreshing to hear the other side of it, that actually, there are photographers out there that think, if these couples like me, they like my work, they like what I produce, then they're the couple for me.
I think it's, I speak to a lot of people that are new to the industry, and I think kind of the message seems to be from a lot of the more experienced people, chase your ideal. What is your ideal couple? And then to me, that doesn't really make sense. I don't know. I've never really done that. I mean, I'm sure a lot of couples land on my website and are scared to death by what they see, and it's not for them. So I don't ever get to speak or meet with these people, because I've designed curate the way I curate, and the work that I show is designed to reflect the part of the work that I like best of my own work. So if people like the best of my work, as far as I'm concerned, then it's a good match, basically.
Sure, definitely. I love the kind of journey that you've come on. It's not really, everybody starts somewhere, don't they? And that's true no matter who you are in the industry. No matter where you end up in the industry, you still started out as that new photographer coming into the the big wide world of weddings, thinking, oh gosh, is this for me or isn't it? I love that.
It was I never really, strange, because it was just very organic. I mean, most major events in my life tend to happen quite organically. I'm not a big planner. Speaking to a company that does planning for photographers, but no, I'm not. I tend to sort of meander around, and things happen or they don't.
But that kind of takes the pressure off too, right? Like I
guess so, yeah. I mean, my wife pulls her hair out when it comes to sort of helping me out with my accounts and the admin side of what I do. But I'm kind of not in it for that. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not looking to make £1 million. I'm just looking to, basically, I found something that I was looking for my whole life, which was just a way of not having to work in the corporate world, do something creative and pay the bills, basically. And obviously, as I've had a family since I've started, obviously those bills there's more bills that's to be paid, but it's still just a way of paying the bills that doesn't feel like a job. So it will always limit me, I think, as to how far I can go. And I've got some good friends that started out at the same time with me, and they're smashing it as far as they're selling workshops and training, and they're still doing 40-50 weddings a year, and they're charging more than me, and that's great because they have that drive within them to do that. For me, the drive is the creative drive. It's still feeling happy, shooting, turning up at a wedding, still being excited, still getting excited editing a wedding, still getting excited delivering the wedding. That's what drives me, as opposed to some of the other elements of the business. So
I love that though, because you see it, like the industry saturated with the how to make 6 figures, how to do less for more, and all this side of it's lovely to hear somebody go, actually no, I do it because I love it. I do it because I just need it to pay the bills and pay my lifestyle. I'm not looking to hit 6 figures. I'm not looking to charge loads and do a minimal amount of weddings through the year. So that I like the balance. I think it's really refreshing to hear that there's still people out in the industry that say, I'm doing this because I enjoy it. I love that.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that have got loads on their plate and are very busy and are selling these 6-figure workshops. I'm sure a lot of them that's they enjoy it just as much as I do, but their drive is different. Like I said, so that's always limited me to some extent, but it means that 12 years in, it still feels as fresh and as exciting as it did 12 years ago, basically. So
you're not feeling burnt out come the end of August?
No. I mean, it's obviously the awful the awful kind of full stop that happened in the industry a couple of years ago was horrible and was awful, but it probably gave me a break that I didn't know I needed to some extent.
I think for a lot of people.
Yeah. And that was the only kind of silver lining, I guess, out of it, was it kind of gave me a break, and it reminded me of the love and the sort of passion that I had for it, because you can get in a rut with anything that you do. That we're still sort of shooting sort of 30 plus weddings, so there's obviously points in the year where it becomes a little bit of a blur, and it can be hard to approach each one with that freshness. But having that break did certainly remind me to do that. Definitely.
I love that. So for our listeners that might not know, you've been named top 50 UK wedding photographers not once but twice, 2 years in a row. With Photo magazine. That's a hell of an accolade.
It is. I mean, it's lovely as well, because I'm not really someone that submits themselves to these things. So I didn't know that I was being considered, and I didn't know that I'd won it until I got the email both years. So it wasn't, I didn't have to submit. It's not like sort of, there's loads of awards. There's the TWIA ones, and there's Rangefinder, and I've kind of pottered with both of those, but only once in both occasions. And it was just, it's just a level of admin that I don't enjoy. It's ridiculous to say. But so the nice thing about this one was that I didn't have to pay to enter it. I didn't have to submit my favorite images and overthink it. It was just nice to receive the emails both times saying that I'd won it, and then I'd obviously been included again the second year. So,
like you said before, very organic.
Exactly. There's a pattern emerging.
So how do you find that this is, if it has at all, has it affected business for you? Did you see an uplift? Did it affect it negatively, positively?
Certainly not negatively. Not, I mean, both years that I've won it have been kind of pandemic affected years, which again is just my luck. Do you know what I mean? If I was planning these things, maybe trying to win a national accolade like that in a non-affected year would make more sense. But in a way, that was even kind of nicer, to be honest with you, because I was still working and I was still keen to keep my portfolio going. I wasn't one of these photographers that wanted to sort of, over egg the pandemic. I didn't want to be sort of taking pictures of people wearing masks for the sake of it. Portraits in masks, I still shiver when I see those images. But obviously, I am at the core a documentary photographer, because that's how I got into photography. It was street photography that got me in. So I'm at core a photographer on that side. So I also rejoined a good friend of mine, Alan's This Is Reportage, which is kind of again,
we've chatted with Alan on here before.
Yeah, I chatted with him quite recently on his podcast as well, and I kind of, again, I've never really submitted that much but I thought, well, I've not got loads of images, but let's spend a year really delving into the documentary side of it, because I think it will look back on the past 2 years as quite historic anyway. So if I can have a bunch of images that reflect that, I think it gave me a bit of a drive through that, to be honest with you. So I think I came kind of top 10 in the sort of UK, and that's like a global thing as well. So it was nice. I got a few accolades over a time where there wasn't much going on, so it gave me a little boost and got me through it to some extent. So yeah,
and in a way, it's more difficult to do it at a time when there's not much going on. A jam-packed year of weddings, 2 years of weddings, you've got content coming out of your ears that you can do. Whereas actually, when it's a little bit quieter on the front, and you've just had half of your weddings postponed or cancelled because of COVID, that makes things a little bit more difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the difference between me when I've talked about sort of just meandering through, when you put a camera in my hand, it's completely different. I'm 100 miles an hour. Absolutely. I feel very comfortable, but it's kind of the only thing in my sort of life. I'm much more relaxed and chilled out into the day-to-day life, to the point where things don't get done. But you can put a camera in my hand and pay me to shoot your wedding, and I am all over the place. I don't use second shooters. I just cover a lot of ground. The weddings over the past couple of years, the smaller ones, it slowed me down, and it kind of reminded me that sometimes you can work too fast, if that makes sense. And I'll never work slowly, because it's too, it's the way that I shoot now will never completely change. It's been too long, but it did remind me to slow down. And the documentary images, that a lot of the ones that I've got have been quite reactive, but some of the best ones have been where I've slowed and been able to slow, and the weddings that I did during the pandemic allowed me to do that more. But back to your question, as far as the effects, I don't really know what it had, because I wasn't really in when I was sort of telling people that I'd won this, and new inquiries. So obviously, but there was less new inquiries, and people were still a bit kind of cautious about booking and committing and things like that. So it's nice. I mean, if people see it on my website, I'm not hiding behind it, but I think it was more kind of a confidence thing that it sort of given me. Certainly did help in the sort of confidence. If it's nice to get industry accolade, basically.
Definitely, yeah. The approval's lovely, isn't it? You know, for
yeah.
years, but also just for yourself. So, you know, I can see there just behind you, you've got that up on your wall to be able to come into practice each day.
No, I'm not. I mean, I've done I've done a few kind of workshops and things like that. And before I had these, I would do a little intro saying, how many awards have you got? And I would go, none. Like, quite proudly, none. You don't need them. They don't do anything. But then you get one, and then it changes. So I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm proud of it. Yeah, definitely.
So you should be, damn right. So your style of work is, well, it's amazing, Matt, to be quite honest. I love how you merge that documentary, but you don't lose out on the couples portrait side of things and the real portraits that you're going to look back on from a wedding and think, oh gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're a bit of a hybrid, a bit of a merge of kind of two, I guess, which I think is really great, and you do so effortlessly. So what are your tips? How can our listeners kind of approach that same kind of style?
I think one thing that I learned probably about 2005, 2016. So I was 5-6 years into shooting weddings, and that was where I kind of, looking back, it didn't seem like an epiphany, because again, it was just quite organic, but I needed a new website and I needed just to rebrand, and it kind of got me to sort of look back on my work and think about the kind of couples that I was working with and stuff like that. And I quickly realized that most of the couples that I work with, they weren't the kind of couples that if I speak with them on Skype as it was then rather than Zoom and stuff like that, they didn't have pictures themselves. They weren't really looking. They're not the kind of couples that didn't want a photographer that was going to give them loads of pictures that of themselves, like of them kissing or, you know, walking down the aisle. It was, you know, but they wanted from their wedding. So I thought if I can give them portraits that kind of, the fact that it's them is kind of second to the shot, if that makes sense. So it looks like something they would want to show off because, like, just it's pleasing to the eye, the colors, the light, the lines, the backdrop, and maybe they're kind of as important as they are in the shot. They're not the main focus, if that makes sense. So, because I used to dread portraits, and group. All the choreographed part just really kind of didn't enjoy it, and was just needs to be done. My couple are not looking forward to it, neither am I. So let's just get it over and done with. I think so many photographers probably still think that way. And I was like, well, I'm doing this every week, and I know it's only 15, 20 minutes, but let's make better use of it, and let's get the couple to enjoy it, and let's give them some kind of expectation that we're going to get something out of it that they might like, rather than just ticking a box. So I kind of did that, and that sort of took me into an area of my creative I didn't really know that I had. I'm not a reader of sort of fashion magazines or things like that, and I think some people think that there is kind of a more of a sort of fashion element to, like, certainly like the group photographs that I do with the kind of bridal party, and even the portraits that I do. But no, I've never studied kind of architecture, and I use a lot of architecture and lines. So it was just, I think I'm just someone that naturally sort of sponges in kind of stuff that, rather than studying it, it's kind of in there. As far as just visually, I sort of will see frames and I will see opportunities and make best use of them, basically. So yeah, it was more a case of, look, I don't need to spend any more time doing this. Don't want to be that photographer that needs an hour with their couple. So the amount of time that I spend on portraits really hasn't changed, but the output has. It was kind of a conscious or semi-conscious decision to make better use of that. And it's still only 20 minutes. That's all it is. What can I do? And it's very quick. I'm just spinning off ideas and but I recce what I'm going to do. So even though it's 15, 20 minutes, I don't just take the couple randomly. I probably spend twice that amount of time throughout the day just nosing around before I take them. So it's more planned than it used to be, because I want to make better use of the time.
Which is interesting when you think that, you hone so much in the documentary side of things and observant and being in the moment and capturing what's going on right there and then. But then you also have the side where you will recce and you will plan and you'll for your couples portraits,
Yeah.
There's an element of structure to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I often, because I don't shoot a ton of venues on rotation, which again is more, I don't sort of court venues, and so I don't, I mean, I get on with a lot of venues. A lot of venues do recommend me, but I'm not trying to get on recommended supplier lists and just rotate the same venue, because I think that can restrain your creativity. So often these venues I've not been to, so I will make a point of getting there an hour early, and literally, and often if the event manager's there, they'll say to me, "Do you want a guided tour?" And I say, "No, can I just have a nosy?" Because I'm naturally nosy anyway. I can sit outside a cafe and just watch people on 100%.
My own. Best pastime ever.
Yeah, and I'm kind of doing that at a wedding, but with a camera in my hand, without a coffee and without a table to sit at. But I love going to a venue and just trying to find a spot where the event manager definitely wouldn't have shown me this, because maybe it's just round the back and it's like where they store the lawnmower. I don't know. And it's just looking for the way the light, or, a lot of my, especially because I shoot in London a lot of, if you went wide on a lot of my images, then you really would think, why did he do it there? There's bins just out of shot. And the London element of it as well, that allowed me to blur the line even more, where I started realizing that if you're in a busy location, if you're doing a city wedding, you might have a great spot, but there's people trying to get past, and naturally, can you just stop? Can you wait? I mean, like, what? Let's let the world carry on. So this whole photo bomber thing came up, where, but I quickly realised that to turn that kind of shot from an outtake to a portrait, the couple has to ignore, if that makes sense. So I quite enjoy lock on me, and whatever happened to whoever walked past, whatever they just, so and that became a kind of style that I still dabble with today, to be honest with you, especially if I'm shooting where there is movement. It's kind of bringing that street photography into a portrait, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've seen quite a lot of it. I've not done it myself, obviously being up in the Peak District. We're generally surrounded by fields with a few cows, a few sheep, and some hilly mountains in the background. But when I have kind of done the odd London wedding and things like that, I can definitely see that's emerged from the street photography side of things. I think it's really clever to kind of capture, and equally, there's a bit of double meaning behind that, isn't there? Like, yes, you're getting married, it's your wedding day, and there's the two of you, but the world is bustling around you, still going on as it was before.
And it's a way of it's a clever way to. I mean, you have to shoot. I mean, I shoot probably on average 7,000 or 8,000 frames a wedding. So there is an element of when it comes to that, you can't. It's throwing it up in the air a little bit. You will shoot, if you see something coming, you will literally fire off, and then what you're looking for is that kind of interaction with the couple, kind of ignoring, but like bikes, things like that, you can almost frame them within completely unexpected. You just have to, you're up to the gods, basically. Someone's going to come past, I've got the light right, I've got them doing what I want to do, let's just see what this bike or this Uber Eats thing, just let's see how it works. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's just, that's no good, but sometimes they will just work within the frame, and it's just another way of mixing up your composition and just being a little bit quirkier with what traditionally is just a couple standing looking awkward staring down the lens. Basically, it's just mixing with the medium a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned briefly before kind of that, when you came into the industry, it wasn't with a set agenda, it wasn't with a set style of couple or style of wedding or anything like that. Which again is a little bit different and refreshing to hear amongst, the popular opinion that you have to, search for that ideal client and attract that ideal client and market to that person down to, the very type of clothing brand that they would choose.
Yeah.
So has your style changed at all over the years? Do you feel like it's kept quite solid? I mean, obviously consistency is a massive thing in what we do, not only just within one wedding gallery, but across all your weddings that you shoot. So how have you ensured that consistency?
I think when it comes to a full gallery, I think photographers don't need to worry too much about the consistency, if that makes sense, because with your style, I mean, certainly the things that I'm kind of known for are, I guess, kind of the quirkier documentary images. the slightly more modern take on portraits and group shots. That's quite specific. I could never give a couple 300, 400, 500 images that are all quirky documentary or all cool portraits or group shots. They know that, and I know that. So the consistency in the full gallery is more down to your edit. So I have things. I mean, I like punchy images. I like high contrast. I like sort of my colours to be quite bright. My black and whites to be very black and white, very sort of punchy. So that's the way I think the consistency goes throughout a full gallery, and then you don't need to overthink it more than that. You've just got to turn up to a wedding, and there's certain things that I have to capture that I'm not going to be able to be that creative with, because I'm in a church and I can't move, or the light in the venue when they get married isn't particularly great. So I've just got to do my best and just use my experience to get the best out of each situation. So I think you can't expect your full galleries to entirely reflect you as your style is concerned. So that's when it comes down to what you show. And blogging is useful, because I think blogging for your images is really important. I think I see blogs of 100+ images. To me, I mean, the couple might love it, but they're getting their full gallery anyway. A blog is a way of selling yourself. It's lovely that the couple will like it, but they're going to get their full gallery. The blog isn't really for them. It's kind of for you, and it's kind of for you to sell what you did at the favorite parts of that particular day. So I think trying to create a consistent style, you need to, first of all, have a large portfolio of images. I think that's the way I did it. I had literally 5 years of images, and I was like, I'm going to rebrand. And what I was able to do, I was able to rebrand to my images rather than the other way around. Because I had 5 or 6 years under my belt, and I'd shot loads of different types of weddings, had loads of different types of images, some that had worked, some that hadn't. I said, well, I like this, I like this, I like the photo bombing stuff, I like the city stuff, I like the sort of quirky documentary stuff that I've managed to capture. So I kind of rebranded to that, really, and I've stayed with that. So my website now, I've only ever had 2 websites, and the one I've got at the moment is 5 or 6 years, and I should change it, but I don't really think I kind of need to. It kind of
works.
Yeah, because it was designed. It wasn't like, let's do a website and I'll try and fill that website with images that suit the website. I did it the other way around. I was like, I've got the images, the brand needs to fit the images, basically. So I think when it comes, not a lot of people when they're starting will be able to do that, because they won't have enough of a portfolio and enough weddings behind them. When I was in that position, I didn't worry about it. I just had a very boring, very outdated, very plain, very cheaply made website, probably that you could knock up on Squarespace now, which didn't exist then. And was more concerned about the images than the brand back then. And then there was this kind of epiphany, like I said, about 2005, 2016, where it kind of, I was able to bring it together.
Absolutely. You mentioned kind of briefly there about editing, which I think, I mean, you said even earlier on in the interview that, you enjoy editing as much as you enjoy shooting the wedding still. And that's all kind of part of how you've built your brand and how you've built your business. I think for a lot of photographers out there, especially, height of wedding season, they're done with editing. Like, it's such a chore. They either want to outsource it, or it's just a nightmare for them to have to do themselves. So how can photographers kind of understand that power of editing, and that's still part of the creative process?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, we're going back to the full gallery thing, where there is going to be, in that 500 images that you give, there's going to be images that creatively there wasn't much put into them. They were literally just something you needed to capture. So the edit is something that I can see people thinking, I can just get some AI to do this, or I can just outsource this. But to me, if you do that, then you remove the creative element of editing. So I think if you think upon it as a part of the creative process, so you're looking more at maybe the portrait side of things. I did a workshop years ago with a guy called Ollie Sampson, who's probably know him. He's been around for years, and he's great. He's like a heavy metal kind of guitar playing guy, and he's one of these people that I did the workshop with a few people that I knew, and when it had finished, 2 or 3 said that's rubbish, didn't teach us anything. But I was completely the opposite, because he kind of let you into his mind, if that makes sense, which to me is something I tune into much more than just how did I edit this, what did I do. And he basically, what he said is that when he got to the point when it comes to his portraits, really he knew what he could do back in his office with them. And he just showed some examples of before and after, and it blew my mind. And it was like, wow. And he was saying, like, it might have took me 20-30 minutes, just that one image, but the result was worth it. And I kind of learned from that. So if you know that there are going to be images within your edit that you're going to get that pleasure from really tweaking and really bringing out the best of, you kind of keeps you going through the edit. Because I still always edit chronologically. I don't go straight to the portraits, just like, let's get them done. So I'm kind of saying, if I get the drink reception done, then I know there's a really cool little section of images coming up that I can really get my teeth stuck into. So I kind of do it that way. So there is going to be standard stuff that I can just whack my preset on and just a couple of tweaks. But the quicker I get that done, I know there's a section of images coming up where the light in the church was amazing, or it was the portraits, or so I kind of keep myself motivated throughout the edit. So I've never outsourced, and haven't even, probably the only photographer that's not sent off a lot of images, like a free trial for AI. I've not even bothered doing that. So I don't even know. I mean, if I did that, I might be like, wow, this is gonna, but I don't think I could ever do the whole, even if I ended up dabbling with that, it would be the bits in between, if that makes sense. I would never send off portraits, because I don't know what they're going to look like myself. There's not like a standard look for the images that I really get stuck into creatively on the edit, because I let the kind of the light and what the tools I've got, I just experiment, basically.
Yeah. Well, for you, it takes the enjoyment away, right? As well, there's a lot of photographers out there that are outsourcing or putting them out to AI because they're just overwhelmed. The editing process isn't enjoyable. They just need it done. Whereas for you, it would be taking away that bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've shot 50 weddings a year at my peak, and I've been in that position where I used to edit slower than I do now. So I've been in the position where, but I didn't have kids back then. I think ever since I've had kids, it's slowly come down. So I would say, if you're at the point where, so basically you're shooting too many weddings, if you're in that position, you've got to admit, if you haven't got time to edit them, then you're doing too much. So what do you do? Do you either get an associate, or do you do less and charge more, or you need to use that as a way of pausing and saying, right, okay, if I'm doing too much, what can I do? Can I do less, charge more? Can I get an associate? Can I do less and not charge more but enjoy it? So I think there's that element of but everyone's different. Like I said, that I never really got into that rhythm, because even though there was years where I was shooting kind of 50, I quickly realized that was too many, certainly when I had a family.
Yeah, for sure. It's finding that balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely. You've touched already very briefly on curation, which I think is a topic that I think although photographers are aware of it, we don't always kind of think about it or task it for ourselves, or it's not something that we always consciously sit down and go, right, I'm gonna go through this set, I'm gonna find the perfect images for my website or for this blog post or whatever it may be. So why should photographers be aware of curation, and how can they do it in the right way?
It's because it's how people find us. And it's people, even if they referred to you by a friend, they're gonna go, the first place they're gonna go is one or two places. They're gonna go to your Instagram, they're gonna go to your website, or they're gonna go to both. And you're in complete control of what both of those things show them. Complete control. So you just need to be aware of that. You just if you I would posting something because you think it's going to get more likes, but it doesn't reflect you, and it's not an image that you enjoyed or think yourself is great.
Yeah.
Don't post it. And if you're not, if you're not sure, if you don't really like it, just don't post it.
Yeah.
I think it's that simple. Your website's a little bit harder. So with home pages, or is that how many images on your home page? And I've been through that whenever I update my home page, or when I did renew you're like, oh God, what do people want to see?
Yeah.
And I think if you look at most photographers' websites, the first thing you're going to see is a portrait, and rightly or wrongly, that just seems to be an industry kind of standard, if that makes sense. The first thing you will see is like, this is what my portraits look like. So I think, if it is, portraits are not the major part of what you do, then you don't have to have a portrait on your landing page. You can have a really cool documentary image. So I think having that control shouldn't be neglected, because when you turn up to a wedding, you've got no control. You basically just got to deal with what's going on. So it's the most control we're in as business owners within the wedding industry is our socials and our websites, basically.
Yeah.
You don't have to show it. If you don't like it, just don't be, oh yeah, but I could get more likes, I might get more likes from other photographers and people that aren't going to book you to shoot their wedding because they're already married. And so try and think, do it for yourself, and then again, that will be the way that you would attract like-minded people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. That makes total sense. I think curation, I think we do, I guess everyone does it to a degree. I mean, if there's images on your website, you've curated, haven't you? You've done something.
Yes.
There's a lot more depth you can go into with it, I guess, isn't there? Thinking like you did yourself, your brand was designed around your images. That's curation to a T, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it's just important kind of to touch on that process, and that there is a whole process for that, not just, oh yeah, that image is nice, that image is nice, that image is nice. That's it in its simplest form, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a whole other aspect to it, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, I see, photographers that I really admire and love their work, and I'll see them post something and I think, that's really, it just stands out, because it's really standard, or it's not, it's not, the lighting wasn't great at that particular point. And we all have to deal with I mean, me more so than most photographers. I shoot in cities a lot, and I don't get sunsets, I don't have golden hour, so I'm fully aware of light is light, and it's how you deal with it. But sometimes light is just terrible, and you just have to make do. But that's not the image you want to be showing, and it's like, oh, it's a venue that I want to go back to, and it's like, well, just because the venue's tagged but the image isn't great, it's kind of find that balance. I think we, if we lose the fact that ultimately, and at the moment, we're, we need to be like content creators, we need, we've got to do videos, and we've got to do, I mean, from my point of view, I'll never lose the fact that I'm a photographer, so I'd live and die by my photographs, not by talking to a reel, or I'm a bit old school in that way. I've kind of 45 now, so I've been there at the birth of social media, and I've kind of hated it ever since. So it's a means to an end, but the day you see me creating reels,
something's happened.
I'm just praying that it just comes and goes, because I've not jumped on aboard that at all. And I'm telling myself that I don't need to. I'm a photographer, I'm not a content creator. And maybe I will have to succumb eventually, but I'm praying that I don't.
Fingers crossed.
And that I can just, and I'm happy. I love podcasts. I mean, I've done a couple now, and I think that's a good way of passing information on. And I've done mentoring, and I've done some workshops, not my own, but I've done at gatherings. I've been a speaker, and I really enjoy that. And I enjoy this kind of thing because I'm just being myself. I'm not having to sort of condense it into a reel or try and be, try and overthink what people want to see. So there is a way of sharing your personality beyond your images, but I think when it comes to website and socials, I want to keep them images rather than me.
Yeah, definitely. Wrapping this up a little bit now, Matt, if you could start your career all over again, go back to that corporate life before you were a photographer, is there anything that you change, anything you do differently?
If I was doing it in the same period of time, no. If I was doing it now, the way I did it probably wouldn't work, if I'm honest. I mean, I still tell people, try and turn off the noise. Don't over look at other photographers. Don't spend too much time letting them tell you what to do. Just get your head down and don't worry if you think the wedding isn't cool or isn't ultimately the wedding or the venue that you think your career is going to remain on the trajectory for. Just get your head down and I shoot 100 weddings. There's no better classroom than 100 weddings, and get to that point as quickly as you can and then come up for air. But I think now that's harder because there is so much noise going on that it's impossible to ignore it. So I would just say, if I was doing it again, I would just very carefully pick the advice that I took rather than just be bombarded with it, because it's very difficult to define a style if you're trying to be somebody else, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you could give one final piece of advice, maybe the golden nugget takeaway for today's episode, something from your business life or your personal life, what would that one piece of advice be for our listeners?
I keep enjoying it. If you're at that point where the editing's too much, or you're shooting weddings you're not enjoying, then stop and ask why and see what you can do differently about it. I think just not. It's not about there's still this thing where there is like a badge of honor about how many weddings you shoot. Why is that? Because it will always be, if it's how many, the bigger the number, the better. That's just natural. If you're like, and it's like, I mean, I've done it as well. I've done end of year blog posts and been like, 44 weddings. It's like the first thing I meant, like how many, and I was like, so at the point I was like, why is that important? It's almost don't want to be showing off about that. It's just like, it doesn't matter how many you did. It's how much you enjoyed them, and did you enjoy it and make enough money of it to make a business out of it? And if so, whether you did 10, 15, 70, people do 70 weddings. How the hell?
Yeah, but, and the rest.
And you always, the people that do 70, you always know they do 70 because it's kind of, that's the first thing that they will always tell you. Whether, in whatever format, it's kind of volume is their thing. It's like, I do loads of weddings. I'm obviously better than people that do less weddings. That ain't the case. It's not about how many weddings you do. It's the quality of work and how you enjoy your job is much more important.
It's funny, isn't it? Because if we were employed and we were working to that capacity and to that volume, we would be complaining to everybody saying we were overworked and underpaid. We just had too much on and our employer was just piling it all on us. But because we're self-employed, it's a badge of honor, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. And it doesn't make sense because, again, in the corporate world, if somebody reached, if you take the creative side of things, if it's a numbers game, which the corporate world is, isn't it? It is a numbers game. This person is smashing the numbers, so that person then gets a team under them. That's the way it works. We don't want this person to burn out, because if they burn out, we lose them. They go somewhere else, or so what we do is we let them step back and we let them train people up to do it themselves. So, and it's harder for us to do that. And I said the only way of doing that is building a business around associates, and that's something I have no idea about because I don't even use second tutors unless it's an absolute necessity. So, but I know people that have done that and done it successfully and have this kind of brand which is more of a team. And if they can do that and their work stays consistent, which on a few people that I know have done it have managed to do, that's brilliant. That's enough. That's a way of pushing forward and maybe doing the six-figure thing without burning out and without kind of selling your soul and keeping the creativity going. But again, it's just this decision to make, because you have to kind of just be aware of, if it's too much, you're not enjoying it, what can you do to change that?
Absolutely. If our listeners would like to get in touch with you, Matt, have a chat with you, pick your brains on anything, ask any questions after today's interview, where is the best place for them to do that?
I mean, message me on Instagram. I still get some lovely comments and people message. A photographer just messaged me the other day. It was just I think I'm terrible at liking stuff on Instagram. I'm a really bad scroller. I spend way too much time on it, but I kind of scroll and don't stop, if that makes sense. So I think it's this kind of way of sponging stuff in. I let it pass over me, but I know I'm taking it in. So I don't often stop and like stuff or comment on stuff. And I commented on something the other day, and some lovely photographer I've met once at a conference was like, I can't believe Matt Parry liked one of my images. And I was like, don't be, that's a ridiculous thing. I mean, it's lovely, but that's a ridiculous thing to say. I'm not like this hierarch. I'm not in an ivory tower, kind of just like casting my eye down. So I'm just lazy when it comes to social media. And we got chatting and he was like, oh, I've got an image I'm really stuck on. Can you send it across? I said, yeah, send it across. And then like, just gave my thoughts on it. Do you know what I mean? If I'm too busy, I wouldn't, so people can contact me. I am possibly planning, my own workshop, but if I do that, I will announce that in some corny way on my stories, probably as is the way we do these things. So people follow me on Instagram, they can direct message me, or they can keep an eye on what I've got upcoming that is more industry based as opposed to client based.
Awesome. You'll definitely create a reel for that new workshop, right?
Yeah, I've got to run. It's inevitable. Awesome. I'm just delaying the inevitable.
Well, it has been so good chatting with you, Matt. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us and giving us a bit of your knowledge and your time. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'll catch you soon.
Cheers, Sally. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, guys, that's everything from me today. Thank you so much again to Matt for coming and joining us on the show and giving us a real no-holds-barred, absolute transparent interview with everything that he's done and everything that he's achieved. If you'd like to see the show notes, you can head to www.studioninja.co/episode 61. As always, please don't forget to rate us on the podcast platform that you're listening on. A little bit of love goes a very long way. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NinjaCast, brought to you by Studio Ninja. Beautifully designed and super easy to use, Studio Ninja will help you manage your leads, clients, shoots, invoices, contracts, workflows, and so much more. To learn more or start your 30-day free trial, go to www.studioninja.co.